Welcome to the latest podcast in a series from the Internationalist and the ANA. I'm Brendan Banaham, Managing Director of the Internationalist Group of Companies. We focus on the reinvention of marketing by connecting the people and ideas in international marketing through content, insights, thought leadership, community collaboration, and consulting. Today's podcast shares how people in our global community are not merely handling today's pandemic crisis, but helping us all to better navigate it. The ability to inspire people to be their best is valuable in difficult times, and no one does this better than marketers. I'll now turn the podcast over to Deborah Malone, founder of The Internationalist.
Thanks, Brendan, and welcome to another Internationalist Trendsetters show. June Sugiyama has been the director of the Vodafone Americas Foundation for over 20 years. During that time, she's been involved with an extraordinary evolution of projects and has experienced changes in both consumer and corporate attitudes toward ventures that advance the use of technology for social good. Today, we explore that evolution and also learn more about Vodafone's specific initiatives to empower women and girls through technology. June, welcome to the show. We're so delighted to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about our foundation. So thanks for the opportunity.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. So listen, why don't we just start at the very beginning? Could you talk about the origins of the Vodafone Foundation? I understand that there's a number of them, and you're responsible for the one in the Americas, correct? Or at least North America.
Right. So, as you might know, Vodafone is a worldwide telecommunications technology company. And the foundations, the 26 foundations, grew out of the philosophy of Vodafone to create a foundation wherever we have an operation. And the model is really quite unique because most of the larger corporations do philanthropic work, foundation work out of the headquarters, out of marketing departments. But our foundations are 26 independent foundations. We all across the globe run technology for good projects. That's also quite unique as well.
No, that does sound quite remarkable. So often with headquarters, it's centralized, and this seems to be more the spokes than the hub, which is quite extraordinary. Have all 26 started at the same time, or are they?
No. No. So whenever an operation grew, some of them are operating companies, some of our partner markets, out of mergers or out of new business. But I think it's a great philosophy to create a foundation wherever we have an operation. And the model works mainly because, it's really difficult for a headquarters that's far away in another country, in another location, to really know what's the need locally. And, need in the United States might not be a need in the other side of the globe in Italy or South Africa or wherever it might be.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and we see that so often. So I'm sure as our conversation goes on, we're going to talk a little bit more about your specifics. But I just wonder, because our audience may not realize that you've been at the foundation now for 2 decades? Is it? I mean, That's pretty extraordinary. And I'm just, the joy of anyone being in a role for an extended period of time, at least in my mind, is that you can see the evolution of things. And I'll bet that you've seen the notion of corporate philanthropy change over the years. And I'm guessing, I'm not sure, but maybe now we're experiencing a stronger connection even between for-profit and nonprofit worlds. But I'd love to hear from you about that.
You are absolutely correct. And thank you for your question. As somebody who's been at this for 20 years, I really appreciate that kind of question. And, if the job had been the same and stayed stagnant, I don't think I would have been here. But the tech industry and the tech companies change so quickly, so often, that my job also evolved along with how the industry has changed. And also the needs of the community have changed over the years. So I have to say it's a big resounding yes. The corporate philanthropy especially, has changed and evolved. It's no longer a one-way engagement. It's an interaction. It's building relationships for a long period of time. It's two ways, and even the nonprofits are quite savvy these days, sophisticated. They don't just talk about their programs and offer that to you and what good they do in the communities, but they also offer you opportunities for PR so that your brand is out in the community. They also offer the opportunities for your employees to volunteer and be engaged. So, it's no longer just about money. So one big corporation giving a nonprofit money, but it's really an interaction and a relationship together.
Well, that's pretty extraordinary unto itself, because it sounds like that's a real basis for what we might call community, which I hope will be a buzzword that's used more often now, because as we're at home, it is wonderful to be able to interact with a lot of other communities. And I assume we're only going to see more of this. But let me ask you something very specifically about the role of giving back. And I know that you said that a lot of the nonprofits are quite sophisticated now. But do you think now at this time in our corporate world that giving back is being driven by customer expectations or the ideals of a younger generation or corporate directives or just maybe a recognition of greater need out there, particularly in a COVID world where governments may be exhausting their amount of funds for some of these things?
Yeah. So just stepping back a little bit, as you know, I'm a Japanese American. I've spent a little bit of time in Japan. And so I kind of have a global perspective, and I can let you know one thing, and speaking for what I do here in the United States, giving back is the American way. It's always been the backbone for Americans. And, I kind of feel that that's why the food banks are doing really well. In times of crisis like right now, United Way, Salvation Army, some of those organizations don't exist in other countries, or they don't flourish in other countries, or they don't get, chime into action. So it's only been recently catching on in Europe and Asia, but it's always been part of the backbone of the American people, and that's why there have been like the Ford Foundations and the Rockefeller Foundations from way back when those corporations and individuals were doing well. And as you mentioned, you are absolutely correct. The young people, and especially the young leaders now, really expect more of their company. They want the company to be purpose-driven. They want them to have meaning. They want the companies to have a really big part in the community, to be good corporate citizens. And also, as you know, especially in the tech industry, it's quite competitive to catch that really skilled and good employee and to retain them. So by being good corporate citizens and being a brand that's really well known is an advantage for a company to be able to kind of snag that employee and to keep them. That's really a quality that companies must have right now to be competitive.
No, I understand that. And I think that we're really on the verge of seeing a very different world with some of the ideals that, as you say, the next generation of leaders have. But now, if you don't mind, let's talk specifically about your foundation, the Vodafone Americas Foundation, because I believe it focuses entirely on empowering women and girls through technology. Now, why was that chosen? What, did you have something to do with that, or?
Right. Well, thank you. I hope so. So yes, I'm in charge out of the 26 foundations. I'm in charge of the one here in the United States. And we've always been at the forefront for technology for good or technology for social impact. I think it's about 12 years ago that we started a challenge to find the best technological solutions to make the world a better place. And we were really good at it. We just found incredible people, out of the box thinkers that were changed. They were all changing the world, doing just fantastic things. So we decided to kind of refine that and focus a little bit on where the gaps are. And firstly, as you know, in the tech sector, we have a huge gap when it comes to women. There are not that many women in the tech sector, even less in leadership. And then as far as girls are concerned, they may dabble a little bit in the sciences, but certainly they don't stay in STEM. And then young women, they may enter ICT, so the computer and technology studies, but they don't stay in that field. And so we felt that there was some work to be done. And secondly, 15, our CEO at that time, Victoria Kalau, had a partnership, created a partnership with UN He for She, and made a public commitment to help increase the number of women in technology. And then secondly, to help increase the number of female leadership within our own company and to use our technology to educate girls. And so we felt that, it's time to really back our CEO up. And not only that, it's really time for us to step up. So that's why we changed our focus. We continue to do what we do best, which is to focus on technology. But we really drill down and focus on using our technology for women and girls. And so that's why we transitioned over to supporting women and girls.
And if I understand it, and this may be wonderfully relevant, particularly as International Women's Day approaches in March, but you're helping women and girls all over the world. I believe that you've partnered with MIT Solve. Could you talk about some of the specific projects that you have going?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, 12 years ago, we ran our own challenge. We're through the 30 entrepreneurs that we found and partnered with, they're impacting over 63 million lives. I mean, that's way more than we thought that we would be able to do and to start impacting. But as you can imagine, it's quite time intensive, quite, fund intensive. So, serendipitously, we found that some of our winners for our challenge were also winners or solvers, they call for MIT Solve, which is a similar challenge. But as you can imagine, MIT is a world-renowned organization and institution. And as you can also imagine, they have a worldwide global network. And I hear they really have lots of smart people when it comes to technology. So, it was really literally a no-brainer for us to partner with them. So we more or less transitioned our competition to MIT Solve, and we partner with them. They run other competitions for other corporations at the same time as well. But we run a Technology for Women prize, whether it be education, health, or social justice, social service. We've found incredible solutions, whether it be for prenatal care, training women to start childcare, giving educational credits for women who mentor. I mean, really out of the box, incredible thinking.
And all focused also on technology, your core issue.
Technology. Yes. And we found that technology has really leapfrogged in developing countries, mainly because, the infrastructure wasn't there and also the hunger is there. and things like mobile money or banking for the unbanked, access to money, healthcare, providing healthcare where, large pieces of machinery are not accessible. So sometimes, even detecting cervical cancer through using a camera phone, or doing research using the mobile microscope, finding pathogens in the water, and a fantastic innovation, which is to track the delivery of vaccine. And this is like 10 years ago. And these people we're working on technology that we now called IoT.
Yes.
Before it was IoT, we didn't even have a fancy name for it, but they had the technology. They're people of passion. There are people that are embedded in the community and know the people that they are trying to help. They're not the people build it and they will come type. They are people that are arm in arm with the folks that they're trying to help, whether it's health, education, or social justice.
No, it sounds like it is an extraordinary, far-reaching program, and I'm imagining that as you talked earlier about talent. I'm assuming that it's something that your employees, Vodafone's employees worldwide must be tremendously proud of. Are there ways that they can be involved with what the foundation is doing and maybe build back more of a community? Or
Right. Definitely. As I mentioned, nonprofits these days are quite sophisticated and savvy. The other arm of what we do is provide grants and create partnerships with community organizations. And our employees have been mentors. They've been online reviewing resumes and providing workshops. We've done that before COVID. So, when COVID happened, it was really easy enough for us to do. We also look for organizations that support girls in STEM. But unlike larger technology companies like Facebook or Google, we wanted to impact these organizations in the best way we can. So we chose to look for organizations that give women voices. So, using technology to help women to organize or to tell their stories. And then the other half of what we do is to help women with safety, whether it be domestic violence, like a really great organization called Online SOS, which is to help women who have been victims of stalking, as well as, domestic violence organizations for immigrant women called Tahiri. And then, a great app, by the way, that anyone can download called Circle of Six, which is safety for college students and women. You can download it really quickly for free. So, we wanted to work with nimble, smaller grassroots organizations that can move the needle. And so some of our employees are able to help them, assist them, whether it be marketing support or, PR support or engineering support. Although we don't have engineers here, we have some engineering expertise, people with that kind of expertise. So, they can provide that kind of support. So that's also another way that employees can be involved. We as nonprofits are creative and savvy, we try to be as well.
Well, it sounds like that isn't always so easy. How many programs do you have running at one time?
Well, definitely we are not the ones that run the programs. We are partners with these nonprofits. So they can range from 20 to 60. We try to keep it to a minimum so that we can have a deeper relationship with them. And we also thoroughly understand that the nonprofits and non-governmental organizations are the people who are doing the work. they are the ones that have the expertise. They are the ones that are embedded in the community, and we learn from them, and we listen to them and try to find ways where we can be proactively impactful with them.
Yes. No, I certainly understand that. Everyone has to have their own area of expertise, and they're certainly serving all of us very well by doing it. Let me ask you something else as we talk about, you mentioned purpose being, so essential to, attracting talent and so on. And I think it's often said in business that the art of being a purpose-led organization is leaving the world in a better place than we found it. Are you finding that's true for what you're doing? And as we enter this era of greater stakeholder capitalism, are you seeing more of a blurring, perhaps, of what the foundation is doing, along with some of the business objectives?
So that's really quite perceptive of you, and I totally agree with the definition that you provided. Of leaving the world a better place. But I think there's an addition to that we always say, especially people who are working in developing countries, is do no harm. Mm-hmm. So in addition to leaving the world a better place, do no harm. I mean, a lot of folks have really great intention, but we look for people that not only have the technology, but also have the passion and empathy. Mm-hmm. If you don't have those two things, that technological solution is not going to be a success. I can guarantee that. The other thing is, that's really interesting. Stakeholder capitalism, it's quite different than shareholder capitalism. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Indeed. So I think the focus has really, really changed with what we just talked about young employees and leadership who wants purpose, in that, it's not just a shareholder, but it's really a community of people, or a gathering of people that you must pay attention to become a successful business, which is indeed the shareholder, but also the community and your employees and the customer. Mm-hmm. I mean, people always talk about customers, but don't know what they want. Mm-hmm. And, so by listening and by working together and having a cohesive relationship and paying attention to them, I think you become a better company. And that's why I think corporate philanthropy, corporate social responsibility is really commonplace and vocabulary that we all use now in business.
No, I think you're right, but I think you've also told us something else, and that's a new equation, which is passion plus technology will make all the difference in the world. So we'll have to keep that one in mind. So let me just ask you two quick questions before we go. The first is, what are some of the greatest concerns and greatest satisfactions that you have as in your role as a leader in this whole world of corporate social responsibility and philanthropy?
So I think the concern is that we still have a long ways to go. I mean, we've had, like I mentioned, incredible innovation, whether it be mobile banking, we have health, over the mobile phones, we have clean toilets. By the way, we're the only sector that talk about, toilet innovation at cocktail parties and things like that. So, we've really come far. We've done a lot, but we have a long ways to go. And, even though we are really ensconced and focused on technology, we know that technology is not the end all be all. We need passion, we need empathy, and we need people. And I think the satisfaction or the upside and the hopeful side is the fact that indeed we have people who are extremely passionate and who are extremely full of purpose and who are really skilled and talented on top of that. And so, that really gives me hope.
Yeah, that certainly is an ideal mix going forward. And as we close, let me just ask you, speaking about going forward, so what's next? What's next for Vodafone Americas Foundation?
Like I mentioned, we still have a long ways to go. It's only been a couple of years into empowering women and girls through technology. So we really want to be thought leaders, in that field. And there's a lot more to do. But I also think there are people who are doing good work in the field. So I want to be able to be amplifying their stories and really multiplying the stories of their constituents also. So with a combination of both, just creating awareness of all the great work that's being done is probably our next step.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I do hope that you can come back and tell us a little bit more about the progress on all of this, because it does seem to be quite extraordinary.
No, it would be indeed my pleasure. And, your questions are really quite insightful. You're always one step ahead. So I really appreciate
it's one of my, the whole issue of purpose and so on is one of my passions. So I'm really delighted to see what you're doing, and you're teaching me more all the time, because now we've got passion and empathy and technology. So
yeah.
Well, a pleasure, and we'll talk soon, I hope.
Great, thanks.
All right, take care
really
now.
Lovely.
And that concludes today's podcast. Thanks again for listening. For more information on The Internationalist, please go to our website, www.theinternationalist.com. By the way, there's a hyphen between the and internationalist. That's where you'll find more information on podcasts and interviews, as well as highlights of our various initiatives, including Marketing Makes a World of Difference, Internationalist Insights and Studies and Intelligence Briefs, awards and case studies and best practices, peer-to-peer marketing think tanks and forums, and the Internationalist Press. The ability to inspire people to be their best selves is valuable in difficult times. We feel very strongly about the fact that no one does this better than us.